Is that all you have to say? My husband, pale-faced, looked at me. Just moments ago, he was sweet-talking his affair partner.
Can I expect a hotel date tonight?
Now, he looked like a different man. He must be feeling like he's fallen from heaven to hell. But I'm going to drag him down even further. Brace yourself, you idiot. My name is Julie. I'm 40 and have been relying on a rechargeable heating pad lately because I get cold easily. It saves on heating costs too. Let me tell you about a day when I got so heated I didn't need any heating pad. It was a winter day. I was in my 30s then, about to celebrate 10 years of marriage with my husband, Dan. We had no kids, but got along well and always went out together on weekends. Life was supposed to be worry-free.
Julie, I'm sorry. I've been demoted.
I was shocked by his sudden admission. It turns out he was demoted for a mistake made by one of his subordinates. This caused a significant loss, and his evaluation, salary, and bonus all took a hit. Given our recent big expenses like a new car and a house, this was a big blow. But blaming him wasn't fair. I decided to support him by quitting my role as a stay-at-home wife and finding a job. I thought it would be easy to find work if I didn't mind what it was, but the job market had changed since I last worked. At every interview, I was asked if I planned to have kids or if I had managerial experience, making it hard to find a job. Companies wanted immediate assets without the risk of maternity leave. Realizing the difficulty of job hunting, I decided to look for part-time work instead. Even that wasn't easy. Commuting long distances for short shifts seemed like a waste of time, and companies wouldn't cover transportation costs. I ended up taking a night job at a bar. I was glad I could support my husband, but he became more irritable. He complained.
I don't want to live a miserable life where I have to fetch my own drinks.
Everyone would think, what's that about? But he really said it. He meant he wanted me to pamper him after he came home tired from work. If life allowed me to be a stay-at-home wife, I'd love that too. But with his demotion and the loss of expected bonuses, we couldn't afford it. Plus, he himself said his chances to shine at work had decreased, and his performance might decline further. So, I snapped. Do you even understand why I started working? We had a huge fight. He said,
I didn't tell you to go to work.
While true, does that mean he expected me to stay a housewife despite financial hardships? I couldn't do that. If we're living together, I want to support him and avoid financial struggles. Besides, while we haven't had kids, it doesn't mean we won't. It's good to have savings. Isn't it normal to want to work for a secure life? We kept fighting over similar issues, and it shocked me how different our values were even after a decade of being together. Our home became tense, and I started thinking about divorce. Maybe he felt the same because he spent less time at home. Often, I'd find the dinner I made before work untouched when I got home. We barely saw each other or ate together, making me question if we were still a couple. One Sunday, while spending time together in the living room, I noticed he locked his phone. Before, when I said, "It's dangerous if I drop it," he'd say,
"It's annoying to enter a passcode each time."
But now he locked it. I couldn't just brush it off as increased security awareness after seeing a TV drama where the husband started locking his phone when he began cheating. Given our fights, it felt odd. Could he be cheating like in the drama? Once suspicion set in, everything he did seemed shady. He used to go to work with stubble, but now shaved every day. He carried mouth spray, sweat wipes, and always fixed his hair before leaving. He looked cleaner and more interested in music and even started reading comics. It was like he was a different person from 6 months ago. What else could change a person so much but falling in love? Without any evidence, I felt the presence of another woman. Instead of rushing to divorce, I decided to gather evidence if he was indeed cheating. I should use whatever I can against him if we were proceeding with a divorce. A few days later, I was late to work because of a train delay. Rushing into the bar where I worked, I overheard.
Can I expect a hotel date tonight?
Oh, Dan, someone might hear you.
Let them hear how in love we are.
Oh, stop! You're embarrassing me.
A man and a woman were talking happily at the same table. When I saw the man's back, I immediately recognized my husband and turned my face away. What is he doing here? I took advantage of his turned back to nervously look at the woman. She seemed much younger than me, probably in her early 20s. Not particularly cute, but she had the charm of youth. From their conversation, it was clear she was his mistress. What should I do? Confront him now? Or wait and watch? When I watch those cheating dramas, I always think, come on, confront your husband already. But now that it's happening to me, I have no idea what to do. My mind was in a panic. Then,
Unlike my wife, you're so beautiful. I'm rushing the divorce so I can marry you,
my husband said, sounding overly sweet. I could feel my face twitching. I caught the woman's, Christine's, eye for a moment, and she looked away in fear, probably sensing my fury. I must have looked like a demon. Is that all you have to say? I asked, grabbing my husband's shoulder. He turned around with a dumbfounded look.
What?
He stammered, standing up so quickly he knocked over his chair. Christine sighed and put her head in her hands, realizing everything.
What are you doing here?
It looks like you're having a lot of fun. Mind if your not-so-beautiful wife joins?
No, I mean,
He stammered, clearly panicking. The manager approached, noticing the commotion, and I explained the situation. He said I could take the rest of the day off to sort this out and added,
Make sure you handle things with your husband.
I had been venting about my home life at work, so the manager and the staff understood my situation. Feeling their supportive gazes, I faced my husband. Now we can talk freely. Since you want to marry the beautiful Christine, I'll hurry up the divorce. So, tell me everything.
Huh?
My husband looked stunned. What kind of reaction is that?
Wait, divorce?
Of course. You just said you wanted a divorce, didn't you? I'm fine with it, but I'm taking alimony.
No, that's not what I meant.
Wait, you're not divorcing her?
Christine cut in. Caught off guard, he said,
No, well,
You said you were getting a divorce, so I didn't mind being the second woman. Now, you're saying you won't? That's not fair.
Well, there's a reason,
he said, floundering. Christine, right? He doesn't have a reason not to divorce. He's just making things up to impress us. He's a sleazy guy.
This is unbelievable,
she said, glaring at him. He shrank back, scared of her sharp look. It seemed she was starting to distrust him too. Then, an idea came to me. Christine, if you marry him, it'll be your first marriage, right?
Yes.
Are you sure that's what you want? Marriage is important for a woman. Do you want to marry such a pathetic guy?
Yeah, you're right.
Once a cheater, always a cheater. They say it happens 3 times. Next time, you might be in my shoes. Her expression changed, and she stared at him, assessing.
Don't listen to my wife, Christine. I'll cherish you,
he said desperately, not realizing how unconvincing he sounded. She stayed silent, watching him. He promised to cherish me for life when we got married, too. Cheaters don't admit they'll cheat, I said. She said, huh. But her face showed clear distrust, and my husband started to pale, realizing his position was weakening.
Wait, I love both of you. Christine and Julie, both of you. So it's not cheating,
he said, desperately trying to explain. Trying to defend his love for both of us, he didn't notice how off-putting he was being.
Shut up,
a man at the next table yelled as he grabbed Dan. He was quite drunk, but not wrong about my husband being loud. It wasn't a random drunk complaint. He was irritated by the loudness and my husband's conversation. My husband panicked and looked at me and Christine for help.
Let me go, old man. Help me, Christine. Julie.
He cried, but we both just watched. If he got punched, I'd intervene, but he only got grabbed, and it was our noise disturbing others. I apologized to the neighboring table. Sorry for the noise, I said, and Christine nodded in agreement.
No, I'm mad at you, ladies. Who the heck is this loser? What kind of man talks about his wife not being pretty and then claims to love his mistress too? A man should take care of the woman he once loved. Respect your wife. That's the right thing to do, the man said. Christine and I were unexpectedly moved by his manliness. Compared to this man, my husband seemed small and insignificant. His excuses, his indecision, I wondered why I married him. He had been a good husband once, but I couldn't remember those times now. Luckily, it was a quiet weekday night, so the scene didn't escalate. Instead, I heard some customers criticizing my husband.
I thought I wanted to marry you, Dan, but now I see clearly, Christine said.
Oh, what do you mean?
My husband asked. You're simply uncool. You claimed you led a wild group, but freak out over a little scuffle. It's pathetic.
Oh, wait, he said that? I asked, looking at my sweating husband.
Then it was a lie?
Yes, we went to the middle school together. He was so insignificant that even the tough kids didn't remember his name. They called him Darren and David, but he never had the guts to correct them.
He's not tough at all,
Christine said. Well, that was actually why he and I, a quiet student, got along well, but I kept that to myself. You're still idolizing bad boys at your age? I said, making Christine give him another cold look. He hung his head in shame, trembling. Christine, if you tell me everything, I'll go easy on you with the alimony. So tell me about your relationship with him, I said.
Okay,
she agreed. My husband panicked, but the man next to us glared him into silence. Christine began to tell me everything about their relationship. They met about a year ago. My husband approached her while she was working at a cafe. Despite his persistent advances, she kept rejecting him because he just looked like an old man to her. But my husband didn't give up and kept trying until a few months ago she finally gave in, thinking,
if he's this serious about me?
She didn't know he was married at first. He only told her after they got closer. Ugh, disgusting. This is also how I found out the reason for his demotion. He had been skipping work to visit her at the cafe, which led to his demotion. How pathetic. I felt like giving alimony to the subordinate who was scapegoated because of him. After his demotion, he had more free time and kept visiting the cafe until he finally won her over. And when I started working part-time, he used it as an excuse to see her at night, deepening their relationship. It's no wonder I was furious about his affair. Working hard while he was messing around with another woman was humiliating. But at least I managed to save some money. By the way, my husband came to this bar because he couldn't remember my workplace's name. It shows how little he cared about me. When I confronted him about the divorce again, he still refused, saying he loved me. Ugh, what a joke. He didn't love me. He just loved having a wife to iron his shirts, cook dinner, and serve him beer. I heard he made her do things for him at her place too. When I told him this, he finally agreed to the divorce. She quickly broke up with him too.
I never liked you that much, and after getting to know you better, I can't stand you. Let's break up, she said.
So much for him, loving both of us. We didn't love him at all. I made sure he paid alimony and divided our assets fairly. Christine, true to her word, also paid alimony, saying,
I felt like a victim at first, but I knew he was married when I continued the affair. Oh, I need to take responsibility and pay the proper alimony.
She was 22 at the time. Youth leads to mistakes, but I hope she grows into a better person. Personally, I couldn't stand the idea of my husband being happy with his mistress, so I was delighted they turned on each other. After the divorce and breakup, Dan lost his motivation at work, showing up in wrinkled shirts with messy hair and unshaven face, making frequent mistakes. He got relegated to a department known for incompetent employees. His salary dropped further, and his former subordinates became his bosses, using him as an example of what not to become. If he had pulled himself together, he might have found a new wife, but he didn't. Typical of him. As for me, I moved to the countryside where my late grandmother lived and opened a small cafe in a renovated house. Before getting married, I worked for a cafe chain and always dreamed of having my own place. I use locally grown vegetables for lunch, and it's become quite popular. The regulars are all locals who come for coffee and chats, making me feel like I have a big family. I'm not married, but I'm enjoying life. That divorce made me realize marriage isn't everything. There are plenty of ways to enjoy life alone. Even though I'm technically single, I don't feel lonely. Life is busier and livelier than when I was married. A regular customer is about to have a grandchild and promised to bring the baby to the cafe. I don't have kids, but there are many familiar children around, and the community feels like we're all raising them together. It's like I'm a mother to them. The countryside has its own downsides, but it has many positives too. Tomorrow, I'm going fishing with my neighbor. If we catch anything good, I'll add it to the lunch menu.
My husband declared that he'd give our house to his beloved sister or we'd have a divorce. I readily agreed and left my SIL to pay the remaining loan.
My name is Sarah, 42 years old. I've been married to Keith, who is the same age as me, for 18 years. We were blessed with a child, and our son is already 17. He is working for his goal to enter university next year. I have continued to work even after our child was born, and due to my long experience at the company, I have gotten several promotions to a respectable position. Now I'm glad that I've continued working, but initially that was not the case. After getting married, I wanted to devote myself to our home for a while. However, Keith had no savings, and living on his income alone was difficult. Afterward, things came up like having a child and building a house that made money necessary. So honestly speaking, I couldn't quit working. But Keith did not look favorably on this. He works at a local to mid-sized company, and frankly, his salary isn't great, which seems to bother him a lot. I wasn't concerned about his salary. I fell in love with him because of his kind personality. But perhaps Keith dislikes that it seems his wife works because his salary is low, and he doesn't seem to like people knowing about my job. Still, I was satisfied with my fulfilling job, how my child has grown, and that we've even built our dream home. However, there was one major dissatisfaction for me. That is the existence of Keith's sister, Amber. Amber, who is 2 years younger than him and is now 40, lives close to us, just about a 5-minute drive away. The first impression I had when I met her during our marriage introduction was of a friendly and cheerful girl, but our relationship gradually turned sour. Hi, Sarah. Hello. One early morning on the weekend, I answered the doorbell to see Amber and her children standing at the entrance. I grimaced with disgust, but managed to return to the greeting, and without an invitation, Amber and her kids just barged into the house. Is Keith here? Hey, Amber, you came. Keith was not surprised by Amber's sudden appearance and greeted her with a smile. Amber's children, who are two boys, one in 4th grade and the other in 2nd grade. While Keith and Amber were deep in conversation, the kids ran around the house screaming. Seeing this made me feel dizzy. Huh? Are you going out, Keith? Yeah. Oh, then can you drop me off? Just at the station is fine. Sure. Amber asked to be driven since Keith was going out. While watching them, I gently called her sons to stop them from running around. You know, it's dangerous to run inside the house. Shut up. The kids didn't listen to me at all and started making even more noise. Oh, Sarah, I'm heading out now, so please take care of my sons. I thought this was going to happen, but yeah, I guess I was right. Amber said without any hint of remorse. What? No, I can't. As I promptly refused, Keith glared at me sharply. You? Don't you think about letting Amber rest a bit since she's tired from parenting all the time? But I have plans in the afternoon. To this, Keith sighed dramatically, as if it was to show his exasperation. Your plans can wait, right? Why don't you help Amber have a break for once? You really lack kindness. Keith unilaterally dropped the statement and quickly got ready to leave the house with Amber. I'll come pick them up tonight. I'll drive you not just to the station, but to wherever you're going. And I'll come back to pick you up, too. Really? I love you for being such a reliable big brother. Keith showed kindness to Amber that he rarely showed to me. Amber said some insincere words of apology while having a smile spilling over her face. Without paying any mind to her own sons causing a ruckus, she left with Keith. It's always like this. Keith has always been extremely lenient with his sister, prioritizing her even over our marriage. Whenever I tried to complain, he would scold me, saying I'm unkind and lacking compassion. Even when we had our child, he wasn't pleased. I was deeply hurt when he showed reluctance, saying, I'm happy for us, but the timing is bad. Amber got married quite late, after turning 30. So when I found out I was pregnant, she was still single. A child in our home, even though Amber isn't married yet. I can't forget how Keith muttered that, worrying about his sister's marriage more than his own child. I thought they were close siblings, but I didn't expect it to be this bad. But that was just the beginning of a nightmare. It was when her marriage was decided. I, of course, agreed to my husband's wish to send a wedding gift to his sister. When we got married, she didn't send us a gift, but she had just started working then, so I didn't mind. But when I saw the gift my husband had bought, I couldn't believe my eyes. What? That can't be Amber's wedding gift, can it? Yes, it is. Why? In his hand was a bag from that high-end brand, radiating its name conspicuously. A bag from that brand cost at least $3,000, and it was too big to be a small accessory. I didn't know what was inside, but I thought it must be worth at least a few $1,000s, and I was furious. That's outrageous. I've never heard of giving such an expensive gift for a wedding. I knew my husband was too soft on his sister. I was concerned about the gift, but I hadn't said anything until then. But this time, I couldn't keep silent. What? It should be fine. She said this is what she wants, and I want to make her happy. That's ridiculous. It's too expensive. And I think it's questionable for Amber to even request such a thing, too. I vented all the frustration I had been holding inside, taking advantage of my husband's leniency to do whatever she wants. Is it really okay to be in such a state, even though she's getting married? That's what I had been thinking all along. At my words, my husband's face turned red, and he swiped a glass off the table. The glass shattered with a loud noise, and I gasped as it seemed to express his anger. I had never seen my husband get so angry before, and I froze in place with fear. Looking at my husband panting in rage, I couldn't say anything. Don't say such things. I'm sorry. Realizing I should not provoke him further, all I could do was apologize. Our young son was upstairs. What if something happened, seeing his father like this? With that thought, I realized I could no longer speak up to my husband. I thought that once Amber got married, she would surely show some restraint. But I had been naive. Even after that, Amber's selfishness did not subside, but escalated. Having moved close by after marriage, she, a housewife with too much time on her hands, often dropped by unannounced. While my son was young, I was working reduced hours and was home often, but that was not to take care of Amber's children. I was fed up with her showing up all the time, regardless of whether it was a weekend or a weekday evening. Moreover, she never stayed quiet when she visited. She would open the fridge without asking and eat the food or even take it home. I often realized things I had bought were gone and I couldn't make the meals I had planned. Amber, we plan our meals and buy groceries accordingly. It's a problem if you just take things home unannounced. But Keith said I could. What? Despite my admonitions, it was always the same, and she would even exaggerate when she told me off to my husband. Then I would end up being severely scolded by him. You yelled at Amber, didn't you? I told you she's struggling because her husband doesn't make enough money. A little food is no big deal. But if it's that much trouble, she could work too. Enough. Don't think about taking it out on Amber. I knew from her complaints that her husband wasn't earning much. But then she could work part-time instead of being a full-time housewife. But when I suggested this to my husband, he would just cut me off. Just shut up. That was always his response. Things got even harder after Amber had children. She must think of our home as some kind of daycare. She would drop by unannounced, push her children on me, and go out by herself. Amber's willful sons would throw temper tantrums when things didn't go their way. I was at my wit's end, but couldn't let the house be torn apart. Only my son Kevin helped me keep an eye on them. Are you okay? Dad and Aunt Amber are ridiculous. It's not fair that only you have to endure all this. Thanks. Kevin must have been observing our interactions since he was young. He began to despise his father and detest his aunt intensely. There were times he complained to his father, but it was dismissed as if I had put him up to it. One day, my husband and Amber came home together. That day, she had left her children with me to go out as usual. I had a bad feeling seeing her smirk. Hey, we're moving out of this house in a month, so start preparing for the move. What? Confused by what my husband meant, he continued. Amber's family has many children, and it's going to be tough as they grow, right? Kevin will be leaving home soon, and such a big house will be too much for us. My confusion deepened. Wait, what do you mean? This house will go to my sister's family. Understand? What? If you say no, then divorce is the only option. What? My husband raised his voice and handed me the divorce papers, already filled out in his section. He looked at me with a smirk. Sarah, I'm sorry about this. Instead of my husband, Amber joyfully explained. She had discussed with my husband that her husband's salary had decreased again, and honestly, it was even hard to pay rent, and she felt sorry for her growing sons. Wouldn't it be nice to live in a wonderful house like yours? She murmured wistfully. Easily swayed by her words, my husband must have agreed. I was at a loss for words at such an unbelievable turn of events. My husband declared that in a month, Amber and her family will live here. Wait a minute. There's more than a year until Kevin leaves, but we're moving now? And where are we supposed to go? You find a place and handle the paperwork. My husband threw those words at me. Amber, oblivious to my panic, told her sons running around that they would be moving into this house. It's useless talking to these people. I was helplessly rooted to the spot. Kevin, can we talk? When my husband was not around, I spoke to my son. I told him that his father is saying something outrageous, and he won't listen to anything I had to say. Kevin listened silently with a frown. Mom, are you okay with this? Yeah, I think we should move out. I'll make sure you don't have to struggle, so don't worry. It's all right. I'm aiming for state universities, and there always are scholarships, right? Don't worry about it. Please, trust me. It might get a little chaotic, but I told him I have a plan, so he should focus on his studies without worry. As I said this, Kevin chuckled. Who do you think you're dealing with? I'm your son, after all. Yes, indeed. You're a son to be proud of. Ah, I was wondering how long you'd endure this, so I'm relieved you've made up your mind. Laughing with my son, I felt a bit relieved. 1 month after my husband unilaterally declared our move out, Amber's family arrived, carrying a load of belongings, looking happy. They looked around the inside of our house, which we had completely cleared out, and smiled satisfied. What? You took the washing machine? I was planning on using that. And even the refrigerator? There really is nothing left. I was told to clear everything out, so that's what I did. You really are inflexible. I think you'd understand with a little thought. Just a little thought? I can't keep up with their way of thinking. No matter how much I think about it, I couldn't understand. Without any objection and just a smile from me, my husband glared at me in irritation. Unconcerned, Amber's family walked around inside the now empty house. It's as if they were inspecting it. My husband nodded, satisfied. What? What is this? I don't know whose it is, but isn't there luggage left? What? Amber was surprised when she saw our room, and my husband widened his eyes along with her. It was my husband's room. He was surprised that his own room had been left as it was. What does this mean? What? I was told to clear out our stuff, so I moved mine and my son's. What? You and Amber are family, right? You care more about your sister than us, right? What are you talking about? Stop sulking. This isn't funny. We're just about to bring in Amber's stuff now. It seems like what I wanted to say didn't get through to my husband at all. Yes, of course. I'll live in a new home with my family. What? So you should live with yours, right here in this house. It seems he finally understood what I meant. My husband's face stiffened in surprise. Do you understand what you're saying? Amber, I don't know if he has told you about this, but I'll leave this for you. Ignoring my husband, I handed the documents to Amber, bewildered. The envelope had the name of a bank. What? This is about changing the loan to your name. Wait, you mean the loan on this house? Yes, of course. It hasn't been 10 years yet. There's over 20 years left on the loan, so you'll have to take care of the remaining payments. Amber trembled. Her husband still hadn't grasped the situation and asked foolishly, What do you mean? I was told we could live here for free. I didn't know anything about it. What is all this, Keith? A loan? Wait, what? No. Well, there's still some of the loan remaining. Why didn't you tell me? While my husband and Amber's family were confused, I just sighed. But about half of the loan is already paid off. The rest we can pay off, right? Well, Sarah has a low-paying job, right? I guess maybe I should work a little then, and we'll be fine. Uh-huh. Their overly optimistic talk made me start laughing, too. Really? My mischievous laughter made my husband panic. So how much is the loan per month? $1,800. What? Amber froze at the amount I mentioned. Hey, I don't know what my husband told you, but about my job? I'm a tax accountant. I'm actually certified. What? A tax accountant? It seemed my husband really hadn't told her anything. Amber had her mouth agape, hearing this for the first time. I knew that my husband disliked the fact that I, a certified tax accountant, earned a decent salary. He probably hated that I earned much more than him. So my vain and prideful husband would never admit that in front of others. I haven't heard such a thing. How can we pay $1,800 every month? Say something, Keith. Amber cried out, clinging to him. Well, why don't you pay for them then? I asked my husband. What? Isn't she your precious family? You always told me to help her out. Why didn't you pay the loan for Amber? When I suggested this, my husband, misunderstanding something, said, Right, then you help too. Let's pay for Amber's house loan together. What a foolish husband. To think he would say that now. I was utterly astounded. Why have I been helping such a foolish man? No, because I'm not your family anymore. There's no reason for me to do anything for you. What? You gave me the divorce papers, didn't you? That if I refuse to help, it means divorce? No, I was unable to accept it. You always prioritize your sister, and Amber does whatever she wants. That's why I filed for divorce. When I told him this, my husband collapsed to his knees, stunned. That wasn't my intention. You might have thought that, but it's always been hard for me. But now I feel so relieved. I smiled, looking down at my husband, and handed the house keys to Amber, flustered. Here you go. Feel free to use it as much as you like. Afterward, Amber's family could not afford to pay the mortgage, and apparently had to give up on moving there. I didn't hear anything about a mortgage. It should be Keith who pays. Amber insisted on living in that house no matter what, but it was impossible. It was impossible for my ex-husband with his salary to cover both the mortgage for that house and his living expenses. My ex-husband, always too lenient on his sister, found that he could not give what he did not have. Despite being so close, this incident led to a fight and caused a split between the siblings. My ex-husband was apparently berated by Amber as useless. After moving out of the previous house, Amber's family was unable to afford a new apartment big enough for a family of 4. I heard they were living crammed in a cheap, small apartment. Surely the kids don't even have space to run around, let alone walk. And so my ex-husband has truly become alone. He tried to contact me and our son, but I completely ignored him. I then went through a lawyer to demand child support. The lump sum for child support was small, but I planned to use it for my son's university fund. To raise that money, it seems he had to sell that house. It doesn't matter to me anymore, though. My son and I had rented an apartment, and we were able to start a new life. I no longer have to witness my ex-husband spoiling his sister, nor suffer the repercussions. Life without Amber has been incredibly pleasant. Later, my son got into his dream university and started living alone not too far away. As for me, I have some good news. I was appointed as the head of a new office. I had been discussing launching this new office with the president for a while, and he had asked if I wanted to try running it. I had thought about going independent, but had given up thinking of my ex-husband's opposition. But now that I've started a new life, it's an opportunity I can't miss. So I took the president's offer and decided to take charge of the new office. My son has moved out, and although I'm alone, I'm too busy and fulfilled to feel lonely. The time has finally come for me to spread my wings widely. With these wings, I will continue to soar high. After all, this is my life.
My mill and husband demanded chores and cutting ties with my family even after my mom died. I divorced, and my sil cut ties too. Everyone was shocked.
You're the daughter-in-law in this house now, so cut ties with your own.
I was stunned when my husband and mother-in-law yelled at me not to attend my own mother's funeral. I couldn't help but blurt out, "What the hell?" I had made up my mind. I was getting a divorce. Just as I decided, my sister-in-law, who had never been involved, suddenly says something outrageous. My name is Lucy, 38 years old. My late mother named me Lucy, hoping I'd lead a life full of light. We were a single-parent family, but I never felt lonely or wished for a different family. The warm memories of my mother and my kind late father are treasures to me. I always thought mothers were warm and loving, but my mother-in-law showed me otherwise. It was 10 years ago when I first realized this. I had just married my boyfriend, Brian. We had been together for a long time, and I expected every day to be full of happiness. But the day after our wedding, Brian said something unexpected.
Pack your things.
Back then, I was living with him in the apartment we had shared while dating. Originally, he lived alone, and I gradually moved in. We didn't have the financial means to find a new place after the wedding, so I assumed we'd stay there. But Brian told me,
"We're living at my place from today."
he started packing clothes into a large bag. I couldn't help but ask, "Oh wait, isn't this your place?" He sighed and said,
"We're moving to my family home."
"Wait, did we talk about this?"
"No, but it's common sense that newlyweds live with a husband's family,"
he replied. "It is?" I grew up in a single-parent household with distant relatives and few friends, so I didn't know much about such customs. I'd seen TV dramas where the wife lives with her husband's parents, and it leads to trouble. My only married friend lived in a multi-generational home with her own parents. Brian's so-called common sense gave me a bad feeling, even though I didn't know much about it. But I was told we had to leave the apartment, so I had no choice. Even though I was annoyed that he hadn't told me earlier, I decided to make the best of living with his family. Brian's family consisted of his mother and sister. His parents were divorced, so like me, he was raised by a single mom. We had a lot in common, and I thought I'd built a good relationship with his mother and sister through our wedding preparations and visits. I naively believed living with them. But as soon as we arrived, my mother-in-law said,
"Welcome. From today, you'll be working as my daughter-in-law."
I was speechless. I thought I didn't marry to become a housemaid, but I was afraid to speak up, fearing it would affect our relationship. I hoped she didn't mean it maliciously, but within minutes, I realized her words were full of malice.
"I saved up all the laundry for you. Wash it all,"
she said. What?" I replied.
"I knew you were coming after the wedding, so I saved it. Be happy, it's your first job. We're counting on you,"
she added. I wanted to feel needed by my new family, but not like this. She explained how to use the washing machine, showed me the detergent, and before I knew it, I was hanging laundry outside. She was bossy, and when she glared, I couldn't help but obey. She acted more like a boss than family. I realized her previous kindness was just an act. She even said,
"I was tired of doing everything myself. When my son said he was getting married, I wanted anyone to join the family fast.
And
You may not have looks or status, but as long as you're healthy, you're useful here."
it felt like a prison camp. I was expected to do all the chores, drive her to outings, give her massages when she returned, and eat last. I had to bathe last, sleep last, but wake up first. If I slept in, she'd yell.
"Why did you marry into this family?"
I didn't marry to be a servant, but my beloved husband seemed to be an agent for this camp. He used to walk on the street side to protect me, but now ignored his mother's behavior. When I asked for help, he said,
"It's a wife's duty."
His logic was just ridiculous. I realized I shouldn't have expected him to help when I was asked to do a massive shopping trip. I thought, does she really need all this? But went along since I had the car and didn't have to carry them back home on foot. But when I returned, she scolded me, saying,
"Why did you buy so much? I didn't even tell you to go shopping, and buying that much stuff is just stupid,"
she said. She had ordered 7 gallons of milk and 18 rolls of toilet paper. I may not be smart, but even I know you can stockpile toilet paper. But buying 7 gallons of milk with a short expiration date is ridiculous. I only bought them because she asked me to. My husband sighed and said,
"You can't even shop properly?"
The harassment grew worse, and my husband started siding with her. I began to think about divorce soon after our marriage. But what would my mother think? When I told her I was getting married, she said,
I'm happy your family is growing.
I didn't want to tell her I wanted a divorce after less than a year. My mother had worried that our single-parent status might be a problem for my in-laws. I assured her it wouldn't be, but she still felt guilty about it. Growing up in a rural area, single-parent families were rare and faced prejudice. I knew how neighbors would make lewd comments to her. My mother feared I wouldn't be able to marry because of our situation, so she was overjoyed at my wedding. She had tried to hide her tears throughout the ceremony. I didn't want to disappoint her. After 5 months of living with my in-laws, I was so stressed I came down with a high fever. In a normal family, someone would care for you, but here it was like a prison. I was surrounded by guards, not family. Of course, as I lay sick, my mother-in-law yelled,
"Why are you lounging around all day?"
When I told them I had a fever of 104 degrees, Brian said,
Really? Check your temperature.
and handed me a thermometer. It turned out I had a fever of 105 degrees, so he said,
Stay in bed.
and allowed me to rest. He used to take care of me when we were dating, but now he didn't even worry. My mother-in-law would come in every hour, forcing me to check my temperature. No kind words or chicken soup, just the silent handover of the thermometer, and then she'd leave if the fever hadn't dropped, looking annoyed. When my fever finally dropped to 102 degrees, she pushed me, saying,
"You can start working now.
or,
At least do the laundry."
I tried to do the laundry, but I became dizzy and almost fainted. Seeing me like this, Brian and my mother-in-law just laughed and said,
Stop faking it.
It was clear they saw me as a worker, not family. As I recovered and started to regain my strength, I received a call that my mother had passed away. She had a stroke while shopping and collapsed in the street. I couldn't believe it and didn't want to. I didn't want to go to the hospital, but I had to. As I slowly prepared to leave, my mother-in-law asked,
"Where are you going?"
I stammered. My mother passed away. I couldn't find the right words. The more I said it, the further away my mother felt. My mother-in-law, of course, didn't show any sympathy.
"Well, hurry back."
I'm sorry? I replied, shocked.
"The lunch dishes are still on the table. Come back and clean them up."
No, I can't. There are the wake and funeral, and I won't be able to do anything for the next few days.
"What? What did you just say? Are you saying we should do the chores because of your mother's funeral?"
I didn't mean to sound arrogant, but yes, that's basically what I was saying. Yes, I said simply.
Unbelievable. Brian, you're not going to believe what your wife just said.
She called to my husband.
What's wrong, Mom?
She said she won't do chores for a few days.
She complained.
What? Who do you think allows you to live here? Acting all defiant.
Brian shouted at me without even asking why. No, it's not like that. My mother died, and there are things to take care of, so I can't do it.
Don't be ridiculous. You're putting our household second to that? You're the daughter-in-law in this house now, so cut ties with your own.
Brian yelled, grabbing my collar. What the hell? I said, finally speaking my mind. Nobody cared about my mother. Nobody asked if I was okay. I knew they wouldn't, but losing my mother made their coldness sting even more. I decided then and there. I was getting a divorce. Why hadn't I realized this sooner? My mother would be saddened to know I was living with such people. She always wanted my happiness, and I was far from happy. My mother would never be happy with this. As I was about to say I wanted a divorce, Angie, my sister-in-law, had come down from stairs and said, "Then I'll cut ties too." At that time, I found Angie difficult to deal with. She knew how Brian and my mother-in-law treated me, but never intervened or spoke to me much. She wasn't there for our wedding introductions because of club activities, and though she attended the wedding, we only exchanged a few words. She often stayed silent at dinner and retreated to her room. I couldn't figure her out and assumed she looked down on me like the others. But here she was, saying, "Then I'll cut ties too." Brian, my mother-in-law, and I all exclaimed, what?" in unison. It was the first moment we were all truly united.
Angie, what are you saying?
My mother-in-law asked. "Didn't you just say something like, if you're the daughter, cut ties with your own?"
I said daughter-in-law, not daughter. I never thought of Lucy as my daughter.
Oh, I misunderstood. I thought you were talking about me.
I would never tell you to cut ties with us.
Okay, well, maybe I'll just leave anyway, Angie said nonchalantly.
What?
My mother-in-law gasped. Both Brian and my mother-in-law were stunned. They thought it was a simple misunderstanding, but Angie talking about leaving shocked them. I felt the same.
Why so sudden?
My mother-in-law asked, flustered. Because the way you treat Lucy is too much, Angie said. Brian and my mother-in-law looked dumbfounded. I was stunned that my sister-in-law, who I had issues with, was standing up for me. Since before the wedding, you've been treating her like a worker, not a bride. You were nice only until she couldn't leave, then treated her horribly. I thought of telling Lucy when she came to the house for the first time or even at the wedding, but I didn't want to be scolded by you two, and Lucy wouldn't have believed me without trust between us. But it's been eating at me, and seeing how badly you treat her made me hate this family. Lucy, I'm sorry. That's why I avoided you. Angie confessed. Her sudden confession made me understand. She had been stuck between her family and me. I smiled at her clumsy kindness and said, "It's okay, Angie. Thank you for caring. If this was a workplace, you'd be fired for this kind of treatment, you know. This is non-compliance," Angie pointed out.
What?
My husband and my mother-in-law exclaimed. Oh, hush. You don't give Lucy any breaks and make her work non-stop. You degrade her character and constantly berate her. It's a storm of violations that would make the news. Just because it's a family and not a company doesn't make it right. This is outdated behavior.
But when I was young, my mother-in-law treated me the same way.
And you hated it so much you got divorced. Why repeat it? Are you stupid or something? Angie asked bluntly, and her mother was speechless.
Angie, maybe you're too young to understand, but a wife serves her husband's family.
And maybe you're too old to understand that nobody wants to marry someone like that now. Lucy married you because you pretended to be nice. She'll leave once she sees the real you saying bye-bye. She waved her hand, dismissively, making me laugh. Right, Lucy? You've probably already decided to leave him, haven't you? I was startled by her sudden question, but I nodded quietly to her question. Yes, I've decided to divorce him, I said.
How dare you talk about divorce when I married you?
He raged. My words made my husband lash out, calling me useless and saying I couldn't live alone. Don't you think you should feel lucky to have me? Just as you chose me, I chose you. We should be equals. I glared at him. Exactly, Angie agreed. Brian fell silent, unable to argue.
Brian, stop her. We need a new servant if she leaves.
My mother-in-law urged.
I think it's too late for that,
Brian said weakly.
What?
She said, shocked.
No, yeah, maybe I was wrong. I realize now Lucy chose me too, making me her husband.
Since our marriage, he had become more assertive, but he had always been a kind, somewhat timid person. Being at his mother's house gave him strength. But my challenge broke him, and he quickly shrank back. The confident man from moments ago was gone, and his voice grew softer.
Mom said a wife should serve her husband's family, but Angie's right. Mom got divorced because of that. I was stupid to believe that's how it should be. I never wanted to mistreat my wife. So I guess this is brainwashing.
How dare you call it brainwashing? My mother-in-law fumed, but Brian didn't seem to care.
Because of you, I'll be divorced,
he accused his mother. She shot back.
You followed my lead.
Watching them bicker, I said firmly, I'm leaving for my mother's and then my parents' house. I'll send the divorce papers. They tried to stop me, but I ignored them. Only Angie saw me off with, Take care, Lucy. Brian repeatedly tried to visit my parents' house, but I refused to see him. Even if my husband didn't agree to the divorce, the law would protect me, and I wasn't afraid. Once I decided on the divorce, nothing could change my mind. Eventually, he signed the divorce papers. My mother-in-law frequently harassed me, saying,
Why did you divorce my son?
So I went to the police. After numerous apologies, she finally stopped showing up. I didn't ask for any specific measures. I just told her, I've talked to the police. That alone made her panic, and after daily apologies, I told her she was being persistent, and she stopped coming, likely fearing another report. I wasn't in danger, and reporting her wouldn't have helped, but it worked out. I got a job at a call center near Angie's university, and we became close, meeting for coffee. Brian moved out, blaming his mother for his misfortune. Angie planned to leave after graduation too. It seemed my mother-in-law would be left alone, but Brian had his own trouble. He got engaged quickly after meeting a woman at a matchmaking party, but it turned out she scammed him out of $100,000. The scam was elaborate, and despite seeming like a classic marriage scam, it wasn't legally considered one. The money he gave her was seen as a gift, so he couldn't claim he was swindled. I also sued him for emotional distress due to his verbal abuse. Given the short duration of our marriage, getting significant damages was challenging. Still, I sought out a tough divorce lawyer and secured compensation. Through legal fees meant it wasn't profitable. It was a token of my effort. I wanted proof of my struggle and victory no matter the amount. Beating my husband was enough. He lost everything to the scammer and ended up penniless. Serves him right. 3 years ago, I met a man through a friend. We both have been divorced and have a good relationship. Will we marry? I've learned that marriage isn't necessary for happiness. We're happy as we are, though we might marry someday. For now, I enjoy my independence and deepening friendships at work.
I love you no matter what, Lucy,
he says, and that's enough for me.
Returning home after giving birth, I found the house burglarized. When I called the police, my mother-in-law is furious. The police suspected my husband.
My name is Kiara. I'm 26 years old and expecting to give birth at my parents' house. If I have a grandchild, we can get rid of that wife of yours. While I was packing, I overheard my mother-in-law bad-mouthing me to my husband. She's useless, not cute, doesn't bring in money, and has no redeeming qualities. We don't need someone like that anymore. No, shut up. That's my line. I wanted to retort, but I'm heavily pregnant. My mother-in-law has always been verbally abusive, so if I leave and complain, even worse words will come back at me. It's important to be able to adapt quickly and find joy, even when faced with challenges that might affect the baby's prenatal development. I convinced myself of this and diligently packed my things. Mommy will do her best. Be born healthy, okay? Excited to see my cute baby soon, I happily went for walks and chatted with my belly every day while I was back home. Staying at my parents' house was super relaxing. No surprise visit from my mother-in-law. No complaints about the food or baby room decor. It was a breeze. Finally, my long-awaited baby arrived safely, and taking care of the baby at my parents' place was a joyful and lively experience. All right, I will be back next weekend, okay? I called my husband to report, but honestly, I wanted to stay at my parents' house a little longer. But I can't always depend on them, and I'm concerned about our house too. Because my husband doesn't help with chores, I worry the house might be messy. This will be your home, Mia, so I need to return soon and make it cozy for you. I giggled at my baby, who was full and peacefully sleeping in my arms. I'm back. Kaden? With a lot of luggage, I pressed the intercom hoping someone would open the door. But there was no response. I should have informed them that I would be returning at this time. I thought this as I headed home, only to be frozen in surprise by what I saw ahead. What's this? There was clutter everywhere, hardly any space to walk. It doesn't seem like the mess was caused by not cleaning. In fact, it appears more like things were haphazardly thrown around. Could this be a burglary? With a newfound strength, I quickly rushed out of the house. Hello? Is this the police? I just returned home from giving birth, and the house is in chaos. As I trembled while making the call, my child, who had been sleeping soundly, started crying, sending me into a panic. A familiar neighbor passing by noticed and kindly offered us a place to rest at their home for the time being. Feeling overwhelmed by surprise, fear, and taking care of my daughter, the neighbor helped calm me down, and my daughter drank some milk and fell asleep peacefully once again. In the midst of all this, the sound of police sirens approached, and I returned home with the neighbor's support. The front door was closed. I didn't look in the other rooms because the living room scared me. When I explained, the police complimented me on my good response. Encountering a burglar could be dangerous, so it's better to wait outside for the police rather than confronting them. I hadn't thought about encountering a burglar in my panic, but imagining it now made it even scarier. Huh? What's this? Why are the police here? A shrill voice echoed when the explanation of the situation with the police was mostly finished. Mom, it's serious. The house is in chaos, and the police are here investigating if it's a burglary. Before I could finish speaking, smack! A jolt hit my cheek, and my vision blurred momentarily. Amidst the commotion of the neighbors and police, my mother-in-law, her face flushed with anger, raised her voice loudly. You shameless person! What are you doing, burglary? What are you thinking calling the police? Feeling the throbbing pain on my cheek, and unable to comprehend my mother-in-law's fury, I stood bewildered. Instead, the neighbor reassured me that there's no shame in reporting, and that handling this situation is a police job. But my mother-in-law refused to listen. You really are inadequate. Whether it's for maternity leave or whatever, you left my precious Kaden and went back to your parents' house. A daughter-in-law who isn't at home and doesn't do household chores is nothing but useless. And on top of that, you come back and cause a police commotion? Truly an admirable daughter-in-law. Even though those around me explained that it wasn't my fault, my mother-in-law didn't seem to get any of it. I somehow managed to gather my thoughts. I thought. A burglar might have broken in, and you're not concerned about any of that? And this is your first time seeing your grandchild, isn't it? Yet, you seem completely uninterested. Why is that? Those around me nodded in agreement with my words. That's not the point at all. A daughter-in-law who blames her mother-in-law without even apologizing. What a disgraceful thing. My mother-in-law didn't answer my question, and instead asserted her own opinion.
Mom, what are you doing?
For some reason, the one who casually intervened was Caden. Caden, listen! Something terrible happened! At the appearance of her beloved son, my mother-in-law's expression lit up as she had found water in the desert. Kiara apparently called the police or something like that.
Huh? Why?
She's saying it's a burglary. There's no way that's true. Caden, tell her not to make such an unreasonable fuss.
Is that so? Hey, Kiara, could it be a misunderstanding about a burglary? Making such a big fuss like this could bother the neighbors, and it isn't good. The police must be busy too, so let's ask them to leave quickly.
What? I felt dizzy, but for a different reason this time. Not only my mother-in-law, who seems to regard me as her enemy, but even Caden, my husband, is saying such things. Wait, Caden. The house is a mess. Right now, the police are investigating, so we don't know yet if it's a burglary. But the way it's all scattered is strange. We were just discussing confirming what's missing and filing a report.
That's not good.
Caden shouted loudly before I could finish explaining. Why? The conversation didn't seem to get through, and I became so confused that tears started flowing. When I got back, nobody was there, and the room was a mess. I was scared and didn't know what had happened. Unable to hold back, I started sobbing, and our neighbor patted my back, offering warmth that made me cry even more. Yet, my mother-in-law and husband in front of me just looked annoyed by my distress. Why don't you understand? Perhaps sensing my sadness, even my daughter, who was sleeping, started crying, and my mother-in-law and husband looked even more displeased. In the end, I was once again helped by the kindness of the neighbor and the concerned look of the police officer, and I ended up staying at the neighbor's house for the night. Stolen items? Well, I have no idea. Kiara is just making a fuss. Come on, let's go inside.
Yeah, that's right. Kiara, calm down.
My mother-in-law and husband didn't mind the mess throughout the house, and promptly went into the room where the police had finished their investigation. I didn't think they would be like that. Facing the closed door, I remembered my husband's words.
Mom still thinks I'm a kid. It's so annoying. For now, I would just go along to keep things calm, but it's a nuisance.
Even though he said that, still, I couldn't just stand there forever. Apologizing repeatedly, I became a burden at the neighbor's house that night. Mommy needs to stay strong. I will do my best. I spoke to my daughter, who finally fell asleep despite fussing. The next day, when I headed home, there were my mother-in-law and husband. Mom, did you actually sleep here? Even in this condition? While the living room somehow had enough space for the two of them, it didn't look much different from what I saw yesterday. Yesterday, when the police were here, I checked the other rooms too. They were all messy, just like before. Despite often complaining about my lack of cleaning, my mother-in-law stayed in the messy house, and she's still sitting there without even trying to clean, looking grumpy. What do you mean, actually? I couldn't leave because I felt sorry for Caden, who was abandoned by his wife. Those words struck a nerve, and I retorted, I didn't abandon him. is that you didn't listen to what I said, isn't it? Well, what a way to talk. My mother-in-law's expression quickly turned into one of anger. Then Kaden chimed in from the side.
Seriously, making a fuss about a burglary. Have you cooled your head?
As he said this with apparent annoyance, I felt something snap inside me. Yeah, right. It's not like it's burglary, huh? Even though a surprising low voice came out of me. Kaden didn't react to my angry tone and just chuckled softly.
Ah, finally got it? Yeah, making a fuss about a burglary is too much. Well, for now, just clean up, okay?
As Kaden spoke almost as if it were someone else's problem, my mother-in-law also seems triumphant. Her chin lifted in pride. Housework and childcare are the wife's responsibilities, right? My mother-in-law spoke with a sickly sweet voice to Kaden. Huh? I'm not cleaning up. You guys made the mess, so you should clean it up. Feeling looked down upon by the two, I shrugged my shoulders in exasperation. What? What did you say? As expected, my response didn't sit well with the two of them. Really? What a wicked daughter-in-law! Stop your whining and move already! My mother-in-law impatiently urged.
Such a hassle.
My husband frowned too, right in front of them. I thrust the completed divorce papers I received from the city office this morning. Let's divorce.
What?
My husband looked bewildered. So let's divorce right now. Then my mother-in-law swiftly took the completed divorce papers. Poor Kaden. To be treated so badly like this. You poor thing. She exaggeratedly lamented, embracing my husband's head. You're such a big baby. I tried really hard to keep it in, but my true feelings slipped out of my mouth. What did you say?
You Kiala.
Both of them seemed ready to explode. Well, of course. They couldn't stay silent after being spoken to with such disdain. But I wasn't backing down either. Didn't hear that? Or can't understand it? Divorce! Divorce! Come on, quickly sign and date the goodbye paper. I thought about my dignity as a person, and the fact that I shouldn't stoop to their level. But somehow, it didn't matter anymore. Cut the nonsense!
Get on your knees, apologize.
The two of them pushed me down and pinned me to the floor.
Apologize!
Kaden's strength made me tear up at that moment. Kiala!
Let go of my daughter!
It was my parents who came to my rescue. Behind them stood the police officer who had kindly helped us yesterday. Coughing, I felt relieved and relaxed. What the meaning of this? Get out of here now! My mother-in-law and husband struggled as the police officer restrained them.
It's pointless. It's an assault in progress.
With my father's help, I got up and smiled at the struggling two. Well, actually, I just asked them to confirm yesterday's events. I never thought it would escalate to assault. Though my husband snapped, I wasn't scared anymore. There are surveillance cameras set up in this house for the sake of my daughter's safety. There are live cameras, so they didn't record the intruder who messed up the room. When I said this, both of them visually relaxed.
Huh? So what does that have to do with anything?
I told you, there are live cameras. Even now, the neighbors who kindly helped us yesterday are watching the situation in this room. And the conversation between you two from yesterday has been confirmed by many people at the police station. I also gave my parents the address to watch. After my mother-in-law and husband disappeared behind the door yesterday, I started checking the surveillance cameras. The police officer suggested that this burglary commotion might be suspicious, perhaps even staged. Not only my mother-in-law, but also my husband seemed suspicious, he said. Unfortunately, he was right on target. Before I came back, the two of you intentionally made a mess of the room together, planning to come back and blame me for it. You two didn't want a wife who would do such unbelievable things, planning to get apology money from my parents. The reason? Surprisingly, you two didn't want the child if it's not a boy. You were ready to kick out the unwanted wife and get a new one, right? What do you call a mother-in-law approved affair? I said it all at once, and everyone there was giving the two of them cold stares.
Could it be some kind of mistake?
Huh?
Yeah, there's no way I'd cheat, right?
Huh? Kiara, is this pointless conversation still going on? Well, for a moment, my mother-in-law seems to forget her position and was on the verge of anger, but the people around wouldn't tolerate such behavior. I refuse to stay here either. I don't want to be told I'm needed or not needed for unreasonable reasons. Relatives who hadn't asked once about the baby since I arrived here are exactly the ones I don't need. It's not normal for the neighbors who are looking after my daughter to be more caring. I'm going back to my parents' house. Of course, I will be filing for divorce, and I won't give up custody. It seems the outcome is just as you wanted.
Wait a minute. The police station? I don't want to go. I hate it.
Wait! Let go! I don't want to! The two were taken away by the police amidst a commotion. After that, my mother-in-law and husband became infamous in the neighborhood. Of course, for all the wrong reasons. They even tried to make amends with divorce settlements, but it didn't make a difference. Well, that's true, isn't it? No matter how loudly you proclaimed, I didn't do it. Nobody believes it. I've returned to my parents' house, and I'm raising my daughter with them. I found a job through an acquaintance's referral. Honestly, I still have worries, and it's tough. But when I see my daughter's face, I feel motivated to do my best. I'm determined to work hard so that Mia can grow up on the right path and not be influenced by a few others.